Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Trustworthy podcast. Susan and I are so excited to be here with you today because we have the most incredible person who's going to be talking about trust and what it means to lead with trust. So, I want to introduce Erin Duffy, founder, CEO, and coach extraordinaire of Inspiration Squared. Welcome.
Thank you, Christine and Susan. It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
So I'm super excited to jump straight in and ask you the role that trust has played in your growth and in your career development.
Well, I would have to say trust has been part of that entire career development now that I think about it. I worked in corporate America for a good 25 to 30 years. And then after that, created my business. And when I look back in creating my business, the first thing that comes to mind when you ask that question is how much I had to trust myself when I made the decision to leave corporate America and then decide to start my own business and starting that business based on just an idea. I didn't leverage anything. I didn't work with somebody else other than my coach, but I didn't have a partner or anything. And I just trusted that, yeah, let's do this. And honestly, Christina, Susan, it really came down to Erin really reaching inside and finding out what I stood for, what I valued, what excited me the most about what I do and what I can give back. And it was through that I was able to say, okay, let's try this. Let's see if it's worked. Because I will say, when I made that decision and said, I think I'm going to do this, said it to my husband. He was the first. I knew I could always go find a job. And that, ladies, was a big piece of trust, because there's also that imposter syndrome that many of us carry, that we think as soon as we leave, I'll never find a job. No one will hire me. Who will want to hire me? These are the things that go on in our head. And for me to say, I think I'm going to try to build this business based on an idea, what I told myself was, Erin, you can always find a job. So why not just try and build your own business? And that was a huge, huge step of self-trust in myself.
So I absolutely love that. And I love the fact that you took the time to go inside and really figure out what you loved and excited you. Let's go into that a little bit. What happened in you? Because this speaks to self-confidence, and this speaks to really putting yourself out there and showing up in a certain way because you believed in who you are and what you do. Were there any tools that you used or strategies that you used to get you to that point? Because not all of us are able to necessarily do that. I remember thinking sometimes, like, can I? Can I? But you sound so clear that you were able to really tap into that part of yourself. What got you there?
Well, Susan, great question. And I will have to say the first step actually happened before I decided to leave my job. I really loved my job. I worked at a creative agency for over 25 years, started from the bottom, grew all the way up to being an executive in the agency. Loved my job. But, noticed over a few years prior to me making that decision to leave, things had changed big time. Just everything that I fell in love with, being in an agency and serving my clients started to wane. And I would say about 5 months before I actually made the decision to leave and say, I'm done, I'm going to go figure out what next, is I was actually really miserable. To be very honest with you, I was not happy. I was sad, which was unusual for me. That's not me. I tend to be very positive and, glass half full all the time and always find the joy. But I was not finding any joy in what I was doing. And I remember sitting down one day and just asking myself, Erin, what does excite you about your work? And when I just sat down and thought, what drives me? What excites me? What gets me out of bed in the morning? And I came up, with the top 5 things. And then I looked at that list and realized only one of them was showing up. And that was the moment when I realized, okay, something's wrong. It's time for you to go. Because when you can tap in to what uniquely excites you, and what gets you out of bed in the morning, what brings you joy in your work, when you personally can figure that out and then you look at it, that gives you so much information that it's time to either evolve in your job, change your career, move to another area, because you're looking in at yourself. And again, that's you trusting your own unique self and not relying on other people to tell you how you should show up or how you should feel. And that tool, Susan, was the thing that catapulted me out of corporate. And it was also what I trusted as I was on this journey of figuring out what next. That was the first thing I used. It's like, I have to have these 5 things, which, by the way, in my practice, I call them your non-negotiables. If you don't have these 5 things, whatever they are, because the 3 of us, it's different for the 3 of us. And everybody listening here, no one has your 5 things. And when you see that, you call them your non-negotiables, they really empower you. They give you the power you need to choose what you want for your career and really for your life. And so that was sort of the driving factor. And then I would say some of the other things was just taking a step back and deciding what I liked and what I didn't like. By the way, that changes in our career all the time, because we're evolving, we're growing. What we used to do 10 years ago, we don't want to do that anymore, right? We've done it. And when you're able to say, I love this is what I love. And just as powerful, what discourages you? What demotivates you? What takes the air out of the room for you? And when you're able to see both sides of that picture, that also empowers you to own your decisions, to own your career, and own the direction you're going in. And both of those things were very empowering to me as I went down this journey of deciding, do I go back to corporate or do I create my own business?
That's incredible. I feel like there is such a story of self-discovery there, but also of confidence. You almost have to trust yourself and have the confidence or the courage to explore that. What would you say are the top 2 or maybe the top 3 questions that someone should be asking themselves if they don't know where to start, or if they don't have the confidence to jump into self-discovery?
Well, the first, I always tap into what I call your inner game. It's really us tapping into who we are and what really defines us. And, just as us talking about what excites you, it's really asking, when we're not feeling focused or we're unhappy or bored, a lot of boredom out there, it's really taking a step back and asking yourself, why? And really looking in at yourself and wondering, why am I bored? What's missing? Because a lot of times when we climb up that leadership ladder, and as we're climbing up just, in corporate, in our professional ladder, we sometimes lose sight of those things that really truly define who we are. And if you can take the step back and, like we we're just talking about, what excites you, these are your individual things that excite you. It's also your passion. It's tapping into your passion. And when we lose sight of what we are passionate about, what brings us joy, if we've lost sight of that and you were wondering why you're kind of not happy or you're bored or whatever, if you just give yourself that moment by yourself, get your journal out and just start writing it, you'll be amazed what will come out. But it is allowing yourself the time, because here's the interesting thing. Many people avoid doing it because of fear. Like, what's going to show up? I hear this one, Erin, I don't journal. And it's like, I'm not telling you to journal. It's really not journaling. If I was to tell you to sit down and tell me what brings you joy and how is it showing up today, you'll be amazed what it reveals. And it doesn't take much time if you give yourself the space and the grace to do it. And many people fear that because they're afraid of what they're going to find out. And I said, what if what you find out enlightens you and gives you that courage to step forward, saying, I forgot how much I love this. I forgot how alive and bright and cheery I was when I did this. What if that happens? What kind of courage do you think you gain from that? You gain an enormous amount of courage because you're empowering yourself. It's through your narrative and not somebody else's narrative. Because many people out there will try to tell you what to do, but we have to figure it out for ourselves.
Wow. I feel like there is a message that's resonating as well. And tell me if I'm wrong, but if you are leading from a place of self-trust and you believe in what you're doing, you're leading with conviction, other people are likely to trust you more. What do you think?
There is something to be said about that, especially when you are being very authentic and true to yourself. Because what's interesting is when we do that, people notice it and they want to emulate it. There's something about that sort of authentic leadership and by the way, leaders, not just people leading teams, right? We're all leaders in our lives, right? And when we are able to tap in, feel very comfortable and confident in who we are, and we show up in the world like that, not only do we feel very grounded and very connected, but the people around us feel drawn into us because they know. They know, I want a piece of that. What is that? And it's us being true to ourselves. And that means being true to the sense of like we are being very authentic about it. We're not faking it. Because we've all seen people who fake it. And many people do fake it. But man, there is nothing like when someone is showing up in their authentic voice and in their authentic story and being very present. Because when they're present, people know it and they're drawn into it.
So I absolutely love that. And where it's leading and what it means is like really to me, taking a step back, really going inside, really figuring out who I am, what I love, where my passions are, and then lead or show up from that place. Talk a little bit, because I know we've all had it. I've had it where I am exactly who I am, which makes me a little bit vulnerable, and it doesn't work the way I expected. And I'm incredibly disappointed that somebody didn't join our team or buy in or want to collaborate with me or want to team with me. And yet I put myself on the line, and who you see is who I really am. What do you do with that? What does that have to do with trust?
Well, again, you are trusting yourself. You are giving fully of yourself. The problem is that we will always run into people who don't want that, who are, I don't want to say threatened by that, but it puts them off because they are not as open and not as connected to who they are. And it can be uncomfortable because you're tapping into things to them that they are unable to do, because you've done that work and you're fully present. And in some ways, you are teaching them by being present and by being your authentic self and trying to pull them in. And they may not want it today, but they will remember. And maybe over time, they will evolve as well as colleagues, as leaders, what have you. It's just like when that happens, it's not necessarily about you. In more cases than not, it's about them. You have to come to it with grace. Just realize it's okay. Someday, they'll come to me, or someday this will work, or maybe not. But that's okay, because what I think is really important is us as individuals, if we can be fully present and be confident in who we are. And I'm not talking about egotistical. When we're confident and we know who we are, it's like we bring a level of presence that is very grounded, and it does pull more people in than pushes people away. So that should be really clear. And at least when we know that I did my best and I was hoping that person would want to be part of the team, but it looks like it might rub them the wrong way, or it's just not their thing, that's okay, because you gave of yourself. You were fully present because you're confident in who you are. And it's okay. Not everybody's, what do they say? I mean, it's like we can only get a certain percentage of people, and there's always going to be a percentage of people that are in the court that will never ever come with us. That's just known. But it's like, it's okay as long as you feel really good about, I brought myself to this conversation. I was fully present. I was excited about what we're proposing or what we're doing. And I love what our team is doing. And I'm sorry that, you don't want to be part of that. And you're letting go with grace.
So Has there ever been a time, like that sounds so empowering and inspiring, that you just stay centered in who you are and how you show up and what you believe about yourself? Has there ever been a time for you where that didn't work and you were knocked down once, twice, three times? And how did you hold on to that, who you are, to show up? Like, what did you have to do to say, I'm going to go at it again tomorrow and really show my vulnerability, because I believe it's the right thing and it's ultimately will get me where I want to go. But man, I'm hurting and I'm disappointed and I don't know how I'm going to do this tomorrow. Like, how do you get from that disappointment and the hurt and the frustration to the empowered show up, be your authentic self when your authentic self is in pain?
Yeah, great question. And I will have to say that is definitely a practice. And it's a practice of self-trust, to be honest with you, because those things are going to happen. It's just life, right? And I would say for me, I would say there was multiple times, especially when I was with the agency and working with various clients, across the board. I mean, like I say, I love working with clients and I love what we did to make them successful. But, there were times when, it wasn't like if we put a campaign together, we'd have a client say, no, this sucks. And I mean, literally, they would say, and, we've put our all into it, right? And we really listened to them and put our all into the campaign and we couldn't wait to present it. And then it was like, no, this is absolutely off. What were you guys thinking? And of course, because I was leading the team, I would take that personally in some respects. Like, they wouldn't know. I wouldn't have a reaction there, but I would take it personally, like, oh God, what did I do wrong? What didn't I communicate? What did we blow? And on the drive back, that's everything going in my mind to trying to think, what did I do? What did I do wrong? And it would take me coming back to the office and me sitting down with the team and us looking back of like, okay, what went well? First of all, I would always do that. Okay, first of all, what went well? Where do you think things went wrong? And then what I realized in that moment, because I was personally taking it, and that's something I would do. And I realized you've got to trust yourself and trust the fact that this wasn't a unilateral thing. You and a team put this together and you and the team are feeling this way right now. So let's get back to the room and figure out what went well, guys. Okay, where do you think we're off? And letting the team speak and me speak and realize I can't own this. And we as a team were able to trust one another, one, to voice our concerns, right? But also be able to put something together that we could address the issue. And then I would then, no joke, that would be a great ending. But even that night, I would still beat myself up, right? I'd be like, gosh, Erin, you could have led better. And it was interesting because it would take taking that step back to look at what was really going on and what happened to then show, wait, you showed up with this and you did this right. And you know what? I don't think we got this piece right or that piece, but I suddenly would be speaking we versus me. And that was a huge one for me because I tend to take responsibility for everything, right? And this is something I've had to learn over time that, whoa. You got to reach out. You got to be part of the team. You're collaborating together and don't take the responsibility for everybody. But I have to be honest with you, that sort of trust in myself took many years, because imposter syndrome, before it even had a name, imposter syndrome, is something I lived with. So I would automatically throw myself under the bus because it would think I did something wrong. But it was a learned thing in trusting myself to say, no, you did the best job you could. You guys pulled together the best campaign possible. And we must have misread something in the client and let's fix it. And that's what we did. It was a learned thing. And it is about trusting yourself, but also giving yourself room to take a step back and figure out, okay, how can I do better next time? What didn't I value at that time? Or what didn't I listen to, and not take the full responsibility for things? That was a big one for me. I don't know if that's a big one for most people, but I tended to hold the weight of things that went wrong. And I had to learn to not hold all that weight.
It sounds like trusting yourself to own your mistakes fully,
Mhm.
as if they were your babies. Like, why would I give my baby to someone else? This is my baby. Like, really trusting yourself to say, like, this is my mistake for me to learn on when it is your mistake, or if it's a team's mistake, to have that conversation with the team. But knowing yourself enough as well to be able to separate what is a personal attack or feedback or criticism compared to a criticism on a thing, a deliverable, a situation. So I can hear some of that as well coming through the scenario that you shared with us. The amount of trust it also took for you and your team to unpack that conversation, unpack that scenario. What would you say, if we think about teams, would be the first step that you would take to start to build trust with a team?
Oh, gosh, that's such a good question. My biggest thing with teams is to make sure everybody is heard and allow people to speak and everybody be able to speak at the same level. And what I mean by that is I've been in meetings before where people have been shut down in the middle of a statement by somebody higher up or somebody who might think they're better than the other person because they may have a master's degree and the other person doesn't. I mean, I've seen it all. And then later in the meeting, the thing that that person was saying who was shut down is the thing that everybody said, yeah, that's what we're going to do. I've seen that many times. And so to me, when you pull a team together, I think one of the first things is that everybody goes around the room and introduces themselves, talks about who they are and what brings them joy, or maybe something fun, break the ice, and find some areas where everybody's coming together before you even start working as a team. Just that little thing can start to create synergy amongst a team, and you're building trust. If you start a team meeting, it's like, okay, guys, we got this project, so let's go. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Everybody is trying to stay ahead. Oh my God, I got to be the smartest person in the room. Oh my gosh, oh my God, oh God, he's smarter than I am. These are the things that go on in our head. But if we start a meeting first without talking about the project or whatever, the initiative or whatever it is, and just say, so excited, leader, so excited that we have this great team together. I just want to spend the next 10 minutes. Let's just go around the room and like everybody introduce each other to each. I mean, even if the team knows each other, start it out in a way that bridges collaboration immediately. It will make all the difference in the success of that project.
Bravo, I love that. That's beautiful. I have an interesting, challenging question. We've spoken about self-trust. We've spoken about trust with teams. And we've spoken about trust in difficult times of, constructive feedback or criticisms. I know one of the things that you are expert and specialty in is executive stage presence. So we've spoken about a lot of two-way communication. How does someone build, or what is the top thing that someone can do to build presence on a stage with hundreds of people on the other side in the audience?
This is my sweet spot, Christina. Well, honestly, it really does first start with what we were talking about earlier, which is what I call the inner game. Because the problem that we see with people getting on stage, and when I say the stage, it's every room you walk into. It's not just the big stage. It's every room you walk into. But you make a good point, because in most cases, leaders all have to get on a big stage one of these days. Even if it's like 20 people, it can be a big stage, right? But we're talking 100, 500 people. Here's the issue, is that most people are uncomfortable getting on stage just because they were never taught how to get on stage, right? There are some people that's just a natural. We're not talking to those people. We're talking to the people that are like, I have to get on stage and I'm so incredibly uncomfortable. I don't feel like myself. When I get on stage, I lose my voice. I don't even know who that is up there. And the biggest pieces that they do is they also compare themselves to other people. So if they have to follow a really dynamic, amazing, fabulous speaker, they're like, oh my God, I got to follow that person. Oh my God, oh my God. And then they get up on stage and that energy comes with it. And so this is why there's the power of the inner game. And the power of the inner game is coming to understand who you are and how unique you are, to discover your unique voice and your unique presence. So by the time you are done with that inner game work, you're ready to step out on that stage because you see yourself as that unique person. There's nobody else like you. And so I tell my clients, if you show up 100% your authentic self, you have no competition. And when that happens, and when they believe that, suddenly a lot of that stuff that used to hold them back melts away. And that's when you start doing outer game stuff, which is like, let's get you on stage. And here's the thing, when you're no longer comparing yourself to somebody else, the guy or gal who went before you, who's like fabulous, fantastic, you're cheering them on. You're so excited because you can't wait to get out on that stage because you're bringing you to that stage. And here's the thing, especially from an executive presence standpoint, the audience knows when we're faking it. The audience knows when we're not present. They know it, right? And here's my little secret to everybody. The audience wants you to succeed. All of us in the back of our head, we have this primitive brain that goes, oh my God, they can't wait for me to fail. And that's actually untrue. The audience wants you just to come up on that stage and basically entertain them. And you can tell when you are able to get up on that stage and the audience knows because you are so present. Look at them, you're grounded on that stage, you smile and you go. This is what happens to the audience. Rather than them kind of like, okay, is he going to be good? They're going to relax and they're going to listen and they're going to be present as themselves and pulled in by you. Because our goal as presenters, as leaders, is to pull our audience to us. And that is our job. It's not the audience's job. And to do that, you have to feel comfortable and confident in who you are and no longer comparing yourself to other people. And when that happens, it's gold. I mean, it's just absolute gold.
I love how it's a double down emphasis on that self-trust and self-confidence because it almost takes risk out of the equation. It not
Absolutely.
being about risk taking, it's being about self-confidence.
It's all about self-confidence and it's all about self-trust. It's to know I'm the best person to deliver this message. This is what I love and I can't wait to deliver this to this audience. And what happens is you can see it in the physicality as well. You can see when they come up that they're comfortable. They're not faking. Because sometimes we'll see some people up there speaking and they're almost too hyper and too like rah and stuff. And sometimes an audience, you're like, okay, calm it down a bit. It's the opposite of somebody who's really nervous. I don't want to get up there. That hyper thing is basically the same thing. I've just got to get through this. And I have so many of my clients who said, every time I speak, I just want to get through it. And to me, that's transactional, right? You're just getting through it. Just get me to this speaking event and I can't, okay, then it's done. It's like, no. If you practice this idea of building your inner game, your unique inner game, and you're comfortable and confident, you are no longer looking at speaking engagements as transactional. You're looking at, I can't wait for my next one. I can't wait to inspire the next audience. I can't wait to connect with my audience. And that's the fun part about sort of the outer game stuff. Because you're so confident, then we work on how to connect to the audience, how to make the audience feel like they're having coffee with you. Might be 500 people in that audience, but I can teach them, and I do teach them how to create a level of intimacy where everybody in there feels like, oh, I think I'm in his living room. And it's all because you are comfortable and confident in who you are. And you are just looking at the audience. You're not afraid to look at them. And that makes a huge difference. And that all because you have built such trust in yourself and you know you're the right person to deliver your message.
I absolutely love about what you said is, I've done a lot of public speaking. I also have come up through sales and marketing where every minute of every day we're proposing on projects and in front of our potential clients and with 2 to 5 to 10 people in a room. And when you said, people are really rooting for you, they really want you to be there. It is so important as you go into those pitches to believe that they really are looking for you to succeed because it'll make their decision a whole lot easier. They're not like when you said that, I'm thinking, oh, if I only had that mindset
I know.
when I was going and making my presentations, But they actually were on my side. They wanted me to make their job easier.
They
And
really
if I
do.
had, yeah, so it doesn't need to be the 500-person audience, which happened, but it could be when you're meeting with a team, you're meeting with the board of directors, you're meeting with the leadership team, to explain what your group is doing. That whole approach and doing the inner work and then the outer work is really what gives you a home run.
Absolutely. And that's why I tell people that your presence, when I talk about your presence and being on stage, and I say being on stage because to me, my theater background, but it's true. Every time you walk in the room, you are on stage. Okay. And it's about being present. So it's not even just about when you walk on that stage, or Susan, when we walk up front of the room and we're presenting, our campaign or whatever. It's as soon as you shake that person's hand walking in the room, or you come into that room and you're sitting down at the conference table, are you fully present? Are you bringing Susan to that room? Are you bringing Christina to that room? Are you bringing Erin to that room? Or are you hiding a bit of yourself?
And are we asking ourselves at that moment, how are we building trust with
Absolutely.
our audience, whether it's one person or 500 people? Like
Absolutely.
our job is to build that trust.
It is a lot, and you are building trust. Like when you walk in that room and you're fully present, and let's say you're going in, right, for a pitch, right away, your client is already starting to go, okay, this team's I really like that Susan. They're saying this in their head. They're not saying it out loud, right? But you're building confidence and you're building trust in that room the minute you walk in. So as soon as you start getting up there to pitch and you've already connected with all these people, you're able to look them in the eye as if you've known them for a while, right? Because in a way you have, because you've been putting together a pitch or something for them, or some sales campaign or whatever it is. And you're looking at them because you are comfortable. You trust yourself to be able to look them in the eye, and you know what you're about to propose is the best thing for them. And you hit it right on the nose. They want us to succeed, right? They want that. God, please, they know they have a problem. You can solve it. And they're like, holy cow, they can solve my problem. I feel so confident in these people because they delivered, and I feel like I'm connected to them. You built that connection. You did it because you walked in that room and you were present, and you were able to do that because you trusted yourself to know that there's no other Susan out there. It's you. And that's who they want. They don't want a copy of somebody else. That's what everybody worries about. They continue to look at other people like, oh, I wish I was more like him, or I wish I was more like her. And it's like, no. They don't want you to be. They want you. And when we have the self-confidence in ourselves and trust ourselves enough to be fully present, it's amazing what will happen to the other people in the room.
Love this conversation. I feel like we have gone from micro to macro to micro, which is such a beautiful story because it all comes back to self-trust, self-actualization, which is so important, especially with everything that's happening in today's society, with all of the pressures, with social media, with clickbait, with beauty standards, absolutely everything, so many different things that are prompting us to look outwardly. And you're reminding us that we have to start inwardly. So thank you. That is so special. That is so important. And I want to thank you for today's session because we've had the privilege of getting to know you over time, and we have recorded another session where you share some more sneak peeks and your story, which we also want to share with all of our audience as we continue down our journey, because there's so much wisdom that you bring to the audience. So I just want to stop by saying thank you. We appreciate you. We appreciate your presence. And we just can't wait to have all of our audience engage with your wisdom and also reach out to you.
Well, thank you, Christine and Susan. This has been a delightful conversation. I always enjoy talking to you, and I'm just lovely to be able to share in this conversation with you.
Thank you so much.